has been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union, and the Soviets have admitted that it happened.
That the Soviet Union has suffered one of the worst disasters in the history of nuclear power.
In the early hours of April 26, 1986, the world witnessed a catastrophe of unprecedented scale. The explosion at reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Pripyat, Ukraine, sent shockwaves through the world both literally and figuratively. As radioactive clouds drifted across Europe, a desperate battle to contain the disaster was unfolding on the ground. At the heart of this struggle were 3 men: Alexei Ananenko, Valery Bespalov, and Boris Baranov. Alexei Ananenko, a young engineer, was fast asleep when the explosion occurred. His wife, Yelena, shook him awake, her face pale with fear. Valery Bespalov, a shift supervisor, had been at home with his family when the alarm rang out. His heart sank as he listened to the grim report. He knew the risks of working at Chernobyl, but he had never imagined it would come to this. Boris Baranov, the seasoned foreman, was already on duty. He had seen his share of incidents, but nothing could have prepared him for the chaos that erupted that night. By dawn, the gravity of the situation was clear. The reactor was spewing lethal radiation, and a deadly fire threatened to ignite the remaining reactors. The plant's director, Viktor Bryukhanov, convened an emergency meeting. "We need volunteers to open the sluice gates and drain the water reservoirs. If we don't, a steam explosion could make this disaster even worse." Silence fell over the room. Everyone understood the mission was a death sentence. The radiation levels were lethal. Finally, Alexa, Valery, and Boris agreed to team up to stop steam explosion that could possibly spread across Europe and kill millions. Suited in primitive diving gear, the trio made their way through the bowels of the crippled plant. The Geiger counters screamed with high radiation readings, but they pressed on. The darkness was absolute, broken only by their flickering flashlights. The air was thick with the smell of burning graphite and metal. As they waded through the radioactive water, every step was a struggle. Alexei led the way, with Valery close behind, and Boris bringing up the rear, constantly checking their surroundings. Alexei pointed to the sluice gate controls. His hands shook as he worked the valves, the radiation sapping his strength. Valery joined him, and together they turned the heavy wheels. Boris kept watch, his eyes scanning the shadows. He knew that any moment could be their last. The water began to drain, a slow but hopeful sign. It was working. They were doing it. But the radiation was relentless. Their bodies ached, their breaths came in ragged gasps. After what felt like an eternity, the reservoirs were drained. The immediate threat of a secondary explosion was averted. Exhausted but determined, the 3 men retraced their steps, emerging from the depths of the plant. They were hailed as heroes, but the price of their bravery was steep. The radiation exposure took its toll. Boris Baranov succumbed to radiation sickness not long after. Valery Bespalov and Alexei Ananenko survived but carried the scars of their ordeal for the rest of their lives. The story of Alexei Ananenko, Valery Bespalov, and Boris Baranov is one of extraordinary courage and sacrifice. Their actions saved countless lives and prevented an already horrific disaster from becoming even worse. They were not just engineers and workers, they were true heroes who put their lives on the line for the greater good. In the annals of history, their names are etched as a testament to the human spirit's resilience and the bravery of those who stand in the face of unimaginable danger. The legacy of the Chernobyl divers reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there are those who shine brightly, guiding us toward hope and survival.